The biting wind whipped across the desolate expanse of the high desert, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and an almost palpable solitude. It was a landscape that stripped away pretenses, leaving only the raw, untamed essence of nature. And for me, it was exactly what I craved. My beat-up Jeep, affectionately nicknamed the Dust Bunny, had navigated the rutted track for what felt like hours, each jolt a reminder of how far removed I was from the suffocating hum of civilization. My destination: a remote hot spring, whispered about in hushed tones by fellow backcountry enthusiasts. A place rumored to be so secluded, so idyllic, that the world simply ceased to exist once you submerged yourself in its geothermal embrace. I finally crested a low rise, and there it was. Not a manicured resort with poolside loungers, but a raw, natural spectacle. A series of steaming pools, carved by millennia of volcanic activity, nestled in a shallow ravine. The water, an inviting turquoise, shimmered under the pale afternoon sun, its surface a canvas of swirling mist. The air, already frigid, was thick with the mineral-rich scent of sulfur, a comforting perfume to my weary lungs. This was it, my sanctuary. With a sigh of profound relief, I killed the engine. The silence that descended was absolute, broken only by the sighing wind and the distant, mournful cry of a hawk. I killed the engine. The silence that descended was absolute, broken only by the sighing wind and the distant, mournful cry of a hawk. I'd been dreaming of this for months, a much-needed escape from the relentless pressures of my life, the demanding job, the endless social obligations, the gnawing feeling of being perpetually on. Here, I could simply be. Shedding my layers of thermal gear, I felt a prickle of anticipation, a delicious sense of freedom. The air was sharp against my skin, a stark contrast to the warmth I was about to embrace. I grabbed my worn towel and my battered copy of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, a fitting companion for this journey into mindful solitude. As I approached the largest pool, the steam rose in thick, billowing clouds, obscuring the edges of the ravine and creating an almost ethereal atmosphere. It was more than just steam. It was a living, breathing entity, a testament to the Earth's raw power. I slipped into the water, a gasp escaping my lips as the heat enveloped me. It was a deep, penetrating warmth, melting away the knots of tension that had been lodged in my shoulders for weeks. The water was impossibly clear, revealing smooth, dark stones beneath the surface. I sank lower, letting the mineral-rich water work its magic, feeling the stresses of the modern world dissolve with each passing moment. The steam swirled around me, creating a private, intimate world, a cocoon of warmth and tranquility. I closed my eyes, letting the gentle lapping of the water against the rocks lull me into a state of pure relaxation. This was perfection. This was exactly what I had come for. I lost track of time, adrift in a sea of blissful oblivion. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, casting long shadows across the ravine. The steam, now illuminated by the fading light, took on a magical quality, shimmering and dancing like spectral dancers. I felt a profound sense of peace, a connection to something ancient and elemental. This was a place where the earth breathed, and I was breathing with it. It was then, in this perfect state of surrender, that a sound intruded. A sharp, discordant sound that shattered the tranquility like a dropped glass. It was the unmistakable whine of an engine, growing steadily louder. My eyes snapped open, a flicker of annoyance replacing my blissful serenity. Who would be here? This place was supposed to be a secret, a haven for those seeking true escape. The sound resolved into the distinct rumble of a vehicle, and then, a moment later, the crunch of tires on gravel. My heart sank a little. I had been so sure of my solitude. I strained my ears, trying to discern the type of vehicle, but the acoustics of the ravine were tricky. Whatever it was heading directly towards my little slice of paradise. I debated whether to stay put, hidden in the comforting embrace of the steam, or to make my presence known. Curiosity and a touch of apprehension won out. I slowly rose, the water cascading off my shoulders, and peered through the swirling mist towards the source of the intrusion. And then I saw it. A sleek, silver SUV, a stark contrast to the rugged landscape, parked a short distance from the main pool, and standing beside it, silhouetted against the fading light, was a figure. A woman. She was dressed in what looked like high-end athleisure wear, a crisp white puffer jacket over black leggings, her hair pulled back in a perfect, impossibly shiny ponytail. She held a small black device in her hand, pointing it in my general direction. A phone, I presumed, and she was surveying the scene with an expression that was less than pleased. A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. This was not the kind of person I expected to encounter at a remote hot spring. She looked like she belonged in a city, not out here in the wilderness. As she took a few steps closer, I could make out more details. Her face was sharp, her features meticulously arranged, and her expression was one of displeasure. A very pronounced, very vocal displeasure, judging by the way she was gesturing with her free hand. I retreated further into the steam, hoping to become less visible. But the steam, which had been my ally, now felt like a betrayer, obscuring my escape while making me an obvious target. The woman continued to gesticulate. Her voice, though muffled by the steam, carried a distinct edge of authority, or perhaps indignation. Then she raised her phone, and I heard a distinct click, followed by a series of rapid beeps. It sounded like she was recording. Recording me. A wave of bewildered indignation washed over me. What was going on? I was just soaking in a hot spring, minding my own business. She took another step, and then another, her gaze fixed on where she assumed I was. The steam was thickest here, a swirling vortex of white. I could see her clearly now, her brow furrowed, her lips pressed into a thin line. She was clearly unhappy. And then, her voice cut through the mist, sharper and clearer than before. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice carrying an accusatory tone. "You." I froze. There was no mistaking it. She was addressing me. I hesitated for a moment, then slowly, reluctantly, emerged from the densest part of the steam, my towel clutched around my waist. My hair was damp, my skin prickled with heat, and I probably looked, frankly, a bit disheveled. A stark contrast to her polished appearance. Her eyes landed on me, and her expression shifted from annoyance to something bordering on outrage. She took a step back, as if I had personally offended her by simply existing in her vicinity. "Are you aware," she began, her voice dripping with an almost theatrical incredulity, "that you are causing significant excessive steam disruption?" I blinked. "Excessive steam disruption?" I repeated, the words feeling utterly surreal. "I'm soaking in a hot spring." She scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "Precisely. And the amount of steam you are generating is disruptive. It's obscuring the view. It's making it difficult for others to appreciate the natural beauty." My jaw dropped. "Others?" I gestured around the empty ravine. "I haven't seen another soul for miles. And others, who are appreciating the natural beauty, are currently being blinded by steam, apparently. Is that it?" She drew herself up, her posture radiating an almost regal disdain. "My name is Karen, and yes, I am reporting you. This is an unacceptable level of environmental interference." Karen. Of course. The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken accusations, and environmental interference was a new one. I had expected maybe a bit of awkwardness, perhaps a polite request to move over. But this? This was beyond anything I could have imagined. I was being reported for steam at a hot spring. The absurdity of it all threatened to send me into a fit of laughter, but the genuine anger radiating from Karen kept me firmly grounded in a bizarre reality. This was just the beginning of what was clearly going to be a very long and very strange encounter. Karen's pronouncement hung in the frigid desert air, a sharp, discordant sound against the low, guttural hiss of the spring. "I'm reporting you," she'd said, the words delivered with a regal disdain that would have been almost comical if it hadn't been so utterly baffling. Reporting me. For what, exactly? For existing in a natural hot spring? For allowing the very geological forces that created this place to manifest as steam? I blinked, the steam momentarily clouding my vision. It felt like hours, but it had probably only been seconds since her voice had sliced through the comforting cocoon of warmth and tranquility I'd so meticulously sought. My jaw, I realized, had dropped somewhere around the excessive steam disruption part. Now, it just felt numb. I managed to pull my gaze away from the swirling mist, which, under any other circumstances, I would have described as ethereal, a living, breathing entity that softened the harsh edges of the desert landscape. Now, it just felt like an accomplice in my supposed crime. Karen, meanwhile, was meticulously tapping away on the small black device she held. It was a phone, no doubt, its sleek modern lines an alien intrusion in this raw, elemental setting. Her impossibly shiny ponytail swung as she moved, a stark contrast to my own disheveled state, dripping and prune-skinned, my hair plastered to my forehead. She was clad in an outfit that screamed high-end athleisure wear, all muted pastels and sleek fabrics, utterly untouched by the grit and wind that had buffeted me for the last hour in my beat-up Jeep. She looked less like a fellow seeker of natural solace, and more like a scout from a parallel dimension, where nature was something to be managed and documented, not experienced. Reporting me to whom? I finally managed to croak out, my voice rough from disuse and the mineral-rich air. I felt a prickle of anticipation, not of fear, but of sheer, unadulterated curiosity. What kind of bureaucratic nightmare had this woman stumbled upon in the middle of nowhere? She didn't even look up from her phone. To the proper authorities, of course, for environmental interference and disruption of public peace and quiet. She paused, as if considering the gravitas of her words, before adding, with a pointed glance at the billowing clouds around me, and, as I've already stated, excessive steam disruption. My mind scrambled to process this. Public peace and quiet? I'd driven for 2 hours to find a place where the only sounds were the wind and the occasional cry of a hawk. Environmental interference? Was she suggesting my very presence was somehow altering the delicate ecosystem of this geothermal pool? The sheer absurdity of it all was starting to dawn on me, a slow, creeping realization that was both infuriating and, in a twisted way, hilarious. I don't understand, I said, trying to keep my tone even. This is a natural hot spring. The steam is a natural occurrence. It's what hot springs do. I gestured vaguely with a hand, sending ripples across the inviting turquoise water. Karen finally looked up, her expression a carefully calibrated blend of pity and contempt. Her eyes, a sharp, piercing blue, seemed to catalog every imperfection, every stray droplet of water clinging to my skin. "Yes, dear," she said, her voice dripping with the saccharine tone one might use with a petulant child. "But there are levels to these things, and your level of steam generation is frankly unacceptable. It's obscuring the view. Obscuring the view." My breath hitched. The view. She was concerned about her view. I looked around. The vast, rugged landscape stretched out before us, an endless canvas of muted browns and ochres under a vast, pale sky. The steam, to me, was part of that view, part of the magic, part of the reason I'd braved the bone-jarring tracks to get here. It softened the edges, blurred the lines, created an ethereal atmosphere that was precisely what I craved. For her, it was an obstruction. "Whose view?" I asked, my voice rising slightly. "There's no one else here but us. Or there wasn't until you arrived." She sniffed, a delicate, almost imperceptible sound, like a tiny offended swan. "I intend to enjoy this natural wonder too, and I prefer to see the geological formations, not be shrouded in whatever this is." She waved a dismissive hand, as if swatting away a particularly stubborn fly. "It's inconsiderate. You're essentially hogging the atmospheric ambiance." Atmospheric ambiance. I swear I almost laughed out loud. Hogging the atmospheric ambiance. I'd never heard such a phrase uttered outside of a particularly pretentious art gallery opening. Here, in the middle of the high desert, at a spring that felt as ancient as time itself, this woman was talking about ambiance, like it was a Wi-Fi signal she couldn't quite connect to. "I was here first," I stated, a simple fact that seemed to be lost on her. "And I'm not hogging anything. I'm soaking. It's what one does in a hot spring." "Precisely," she countered, her voice gaining a steely edge. "But one does it with consideration for others, and with an awareness of the environment. The steam, you see, is a form of particulate matter. It can affect the air quality." I stared at her, dumbfounded. Particulate matter. Air quality. Was she serious? I looked at the steam, which was now gently swirling around my shoulders, caressing my skin with its deep, penetrating warmth. It smelled of sulfur and earth, of minerals and the raw, untamed essence of the planet. It felt like a comforting perfume to my weary lungs, a balm to my frayed nerves, and she was calling it particulate matter? "This is a natural phenomenon," I repeated, my voice tighter now. The gnawing feeling of unease was starting to give way to a distinct, sharp annoyance. "It's not pollution. It's geology. And your excessive presence is altering the natural balance," she insisted, her eyes narrowing. "There's a reason these places are often regulated: to prevent overuse, to maintain their pristine condition." She tapped her phone again, a decisive motion. "I'm documenting this, for the record." I watched, mesmerized by the sheer audacity of it all. She was standing there, a beacon of polished civilization, clad in synthetic fibers that had probably traveled further than I had, lecturing me about environmental balance and particulate matter in a place that was, by its very nature, wild and untamed. She was a walking, talking embodiment of everything I'd come here to escape. The rules, the regulations, the judgment, the sheer, suffocating hum of a society that felt increasingly disconnected from the natural world. "So, you're going to report me," I said, more to myself than to her, a strange calm settling over me. It was the calm that comes from realizing the absurdity of a situation has reached its absolute zenith. For being too steamy." Karen gave a curt nod, her expression one of grim satisfaction. "Precisely. Excessive steam disruption and interference with the natural viewing experience." She finally lowered her phone, her gaze fixing on me with an almost predatory intensity. "I expect you to cease this disruption immediately, or at least to move over to that other pool, the one near the rocks. It seems to produce less steam." I followed her gaze to a smaller, shallower pool, barely a few feet away. It was true, the steam rising from it was less dense, more wispy, but it was also significantly cooler, judging by the faint tendrils that curled upwards. And more importantly, it was right on the edge of the main pool, where the water was deepest and the heat most profound. It was also closer to where she was standing, meaning I'd be practically in her line of sight. "No," I said, my voice firm. The delicious sense of freedom I'd felt moments ago was being steadily eroded by her presence, but a new, defiant resolve was taking its place. "I'm not moving. I like this pool, and I'm not going to apologize for the steam. It's a hot spring." Her eyes flashed. "Well, you'll regret that. I have the footage, and I have your license plate number. I'll be sending this off to the Park Service, or whoever handles these remote natural areas." "Park Service? Remote natural areas?" I glanced around, trying to recall if I'd seen any signs, any indication of jurisdiction. There had been nothing. Just the rutted tracks, the endless scrub, and the promise of solitude. This was supposed to be a place where the rules of the civilized world melted away, replaced by the ancient rhythms of the earth. "You know," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face, "I think you've got it all wrong. This isn't a public hot spring in the way you're imagining it. There are no designated soaking zones, no official steam level regulations. This is just nature." I let the word hang in the air, a challenge. "And nature doesn't care about your view. It just is." Karen's mouth tightened. She looked as though she'd swallowed something sour. "We'll see about that," she murmured, her voice a low growl. She took a step back, as if the very steam I was generating was an offensive substance. "I'm done with this. You can explain yourself to the authorities." With that, she turned, her sleek ensemble moving with an almost unnerving efficiency. She didn't look back as she strode towards her silver SUV, a vehicle that seemed to gleam with an almost unnatural perfection against the dusty landscape. The engine, when it roared to life, was a deep, resonant sound, far more powerful and unsettling than the gentle bubbling of the spring. It echoed across the desolate expanse, a stark reminder of the world I was trying to leave behind. I watched as she maneuvered her vehicle with practiced ease, kicking up dust devils in her wake. The sound of her engine faded, replaced once again by the whisper of the wind and the hiss of the water. I was alone again. Or I was supposed to be. A strange, almost giddy feeling washed over me. She had threatened to report me to the authorities for excessive steam. It was so utterly, profoundly ridiculous that it almost felt liberating. I sank deeper into the water, the mineral-rich warmth seeping into my bones. The steam rose around me, thick and opaque, a billowy cloud that obscured the world, and for the first time since her arrival, I found myself smiling, a genuine, uninhibited smile. Let her report me. Let her document. Let her complain. In the grand, indifferent scheme of this ancient landscape, her manufactured outrage was nothing more than a fleeting ripple on the surface of something far deeper, far more enduring. I closed my eyes, letting the water cradle me, and allowed the ethereal, disruptive steam to envelop me once more. This was my sanctuary, and no amount of manufactured indignation was going to take that away. The silence that descended after the engine noise faded was profound, a heavy blanket redraped over the landscape. It was the kind of quiet that had teeth, the kind that swallowed the small, insignificant sounds of civilization whole. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, the air misting in front of my face before dissolving into the already thick atmosphere. My jaw, which had been clenched tight enough to chip a molar, finally relaxed. "Excessive steam disruption," I murmured to the indifferent sky, the words tasting like ash. "Environmental interference." I chuckled, a dry, rasping sound that was swallowed by the wind. The sheer, unadulterated absurdity of it all was starting to coalesce into a kind of perverse relief. She had come. She had seen. She had complained about nature. And I, the unwitting perpetrator of geothermal disturbance, had survived. I sank back into the welcoming embrace of the water, the deep, penetrating warmth a stark contrast to the biting chill of the air. The water, a perfect, inviting turquoise, swirled gently around me, its surface a canvas of swirling mist. The mineral-rich scent, a comforting perfume to my weary lungs, filled the air. Karen, with her pristine athleisure and her tiny black device, felt like a dream, or perhaps more accurately, a nightmare I had briefly and comically stumbled into. The gnawing feeling of being observed, which had settled over me the moment the sleek silver SUV had appeared, began to dissipate. The landscape, which had temporarily shrunk under the weight of her judgment, began to expand again. The rugged mountains, etched against the pale, washed-out sky, reclaimed their dominance. The vast expanse of the high desert, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and an almost palpable solitude, was mine again. I let my head loll back, my eyes closing. I could still picture her, standing there, her face a mask of theatrical incredulity, her voice sharp and accusatory. I could almost feel the judgmental gaze of her perfectly sculpted eyebrows. It was the kind of look that suggested I had personally offended the natural order of things by merely existing, by daring to exist in a way that wasn't pre-approved, pre-packaged, or pre-sanitized. And the steam. My God, the steam. It was a living, breathing entity, a natural exhalation from the Earth's core, and in Karen's world, it was apparently a disruptive force, a visual impediment to her meticulously curated experience of the wilderness. It was a force that needed to be managed, controlled, perhaps even politely asked to dissipate elsewhere. A prickle of anticipation, a delicious sense of freedom, began to unfurl within me. She had threatened to report me. To whom? The Desert Patrol? The Bureau of Natural Phenomena? The International Steam Disruption Authority? The thought made me smile, a genuine unforced smile this time. I scooped up some of the mineral-rich water in my cupped hands and let it trickle down my face. The warmth was a balm, not just for my skin, but for my soul. This place, this remote, untamed corner of the world, was my sanctuary. It was a place that stripped away pretenses, leaving only the raw, untamed essence of nature. And for me, it was exactly what I craved. It was a place where the only rules were the ancient laws of geology and weather, and where the only disruptions were the hawk's cry or the whisper of the wind. I tilted my head, listening. The wind was picking up, sighing through the sparse brush, a mournful yet strangely comforting sound. It carried with it the scent of dust and something else, something wild and ancient. I imagined the steam, my supposed accomplice in this act of environmental disruption, dancing and swirling, unfazed by Karen's pronouncements. It was a spectral ballet, a testament to the Earth's raw power, and I was a privileged spectator. I submerged myself deeper into the water, letting it cover my shoulders. The cold air was a distant memory. Here, in this geothermal embrace, I was cocooned. Adrift in a sea of blissful oblivion, I felt a profound sense of peace settle over me. The encounter with Karen, which had initially felt like a violation, now seemed like a fleeting, almost comical interlude. She was an anomaly, a glitch in the matrix of my escape. And she had been dealt with. Or rather, she had dealt with herself by leaving. I opened my eyes, the mist around me momentarily obscuring my vision. When it cleared, the landscape was as it had been before her arrival, vast, silent, and breathtakingly beautiful. The steam, which she had so vehemently protested, now seemed to be embracing me more tightly, a comforting, ethereal shroud. It felt like a betrayal of her narrative, a silent refutation of her claims. The steam was not a disruption. It was the very essence of this place, the very reason I had come. I let my thoughts drift, unburdened by the need to impress or conform. In this remote hot spring, far from the suffocating hum of civilization, I was free. Free to soak, free to steam, free to simply be. The idea of reporting me for excessive steam disruption was so utterly ludicrous that it bordered on the sublime. It was a testament to the disconnect between those who sought genuine solace in nature and those who viewed it through a lens of manufactured order and personal inconvenience. I reached out and touched the smooth, dark stones beneath the water's surface. They had been here for millennia, shaped by the Earth's slow, relentless forces. They had witnessed countless sunrises, countless storms, and undoubtedly countless bathers seeking respite. They had also, I suspected, witnessed their fair share of steam. And they had, I was quite sure, never once filed a complaint. A hawk cried out overhead, a sharp, piercing sound that echoed across the desolate landscape. I tracked its flight for a moment, a dark silhouette against the pale sky, then let my gaze fall back to the water. The steam rose in thick, billowing clouds, obscuring the edges of the pool, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. It was beautiful. It was natural. It was, in short, everything Karen was not. I closed my eyes again, savoring the deep, penetrating warmth. The earlier unease had been replaced by a quiet defiance. Let her report me. Let her tell her story of the rogue soaker and the disruptive steam. I knew the truth. I knew the profound peace this place offered, the authentic connection it fostered. And I knew that no amount of manufactured outrage, no amount of misplaced authority could ever truly diminish that. The sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the desert floor. The air grew colder, but the water remained a perfect, unchanging temperature. I felt a profound sense of gratitude for this hidden gem, for its raw, unadulterated beauty. It was a place that demanded nothing, offered everything, and asked only that you let go. I decided to stay a while longer. The threat of reporting felt hollow, a distant echo in the vast silence. My only concern was the encroaching chill of the evening air, a chill that the penetrating warmth of the spring would continue to hold at bay. The steam, my supposed transgressor, swirled around me, a comforting, ethereal presence. It was a part of the landscape, a part of the experience, and a part of me, at least for this moment. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would continue to soak, to steam, to revel in the solitude. If Karen's report led to anything, it would simply be a testament to the enduring power of nature to both heal and to confound those who failed to understand its essence. And in the grand scheme of things, that was a small price to pay for such profound peace. The steam continued its silent, majestic dance, and I, undisturbed, continued my soak, the absurdity of the situation now a source of quiet amusement rather than annoyance. The desert held its breath, and I, a willing participant in its wild, untamed beauty, breathed it all in. The silence that rushed back in was almost deafening, a palpable entity that seemed to absorb the lingering echoes of Karen's indignant pronouncements. I watched the shimmering heat waves rise from the water, feeling the gnawing feeling of absurdity begin to subside, replaced by a delicious sense of freedom. She was gone. Her sleek silver SUV, a metallic beetle that had dared to crawl into this wild expanse, was now a receding speck on the dusty track. I let out a long, slow breath, the mineral-rich scent of the hot spring filling my lungs, a comforting perfume to my weary soul. "Excessive steam disruption," I muttered, a laugh bubbling up in my chest. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it. The steam, a living, breathing entity born from the Earth's fiery core, was apparently an offense. The water, a geothermal embrace that had been here long before any of us, was now apparently under Karen's jurisdiction. I imagined her, back in her meticulously curated life, filing a formal complaint. Subject, designated steam disruptor, was observed engaging in the natural emission of water vapor, thereby compromising the aesthetic integrity of the natural landscape. It was too rich. I sank deeper into the inviting turquoise water, the deep, penetrating warmth seeping into my bones, chasing away the last vestiges of the day's chill and the even colder prickle of Karen's outrage. The surface of the pool was a canvas of swirling mist, a constant dance between the frigid desert air and the Earth's simmering heart. It was a spectacle so primal, so elemental, it felt almost sacred, and I, in my disheveled state, was being accused of… what? Ruining the view? For whom? For the hawks circling overhead? For the ancient gnarled Joshua trees standing sentinel on the distant mesas? Karen's voice, a sharp, discordant sound against the symphony of the desert, still echoed faintly in my mind. Her accusation felt like a betrayal, not of her, but of this place. This sanctuary, this raw, natural spectacle, had been intruded upon by the very forces I had come here to escape. The suffocating hum of civilization, the endless demands, the constant judgment. It had found me, even here, in this remote corner of the world. But then I remembered the look on her face, the theatrical incredulity, the regal disdain as she declared her intention to report me. It was so utterly, spectacularly, divorced from reality that it bordered on performance art. She had arrived in a vehicle that whispered of wealth and convenience, clad in athleisure wear that probably cost more than my entire camping kit, and proceeded to lecture me, a person communing with nature, on the proper use of natural phenomena. The irony was so thick, I could have swum in it. I closed my eyes, letting the water cradle me. The steam, which Karen had deemed an offense, now felt like a protective cloak. It swirled around me, obscuring the world, and within its ethereal embrace, I felt a delicious sense of freedom wash over me. The steam wasn't a disruption. It was part of the experience. It was the breath of the earth, a visible manifestation of its power and its warmth. To complain about it was like complaining about the sun being too bright or the wind being too strong. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of what this place was. I pictured her, meticulously documenting my transgression with her small black device, the license plate number, the precise moment of my alleged steam-related malfeasance. She probably had a whole system for cataloging these affronts to her ordered existence. I wondered if she reported people for excessive bird chirping or for the way the moonlight dappled through the branches. It was a world away from the one I inhabited, a world where the natural order of things was a source of annoyance rather than awe. A faint smile touched my lips. Let her. Let her complain. Let her send her footage. What would they do? Issue me a citation for excessive natural steam emission? Confiscate my bathwater? The absurdity was the point. It was a reminder that the world was full of people like Karen. People who saw the wild places not as opportunities for wonder, but as extensions of their own meticulously controlled environments. The sun, now lower in the sky, cast long, dramatic shadows across the desert. The air was growing colder, but the water remained a constant, unwavering warmth. I let the thoughts of Karen and her complaints drift away like the mist dissolving into the twilight. This place was mine, and it was hers, and it belonged to the wind and the rocks and the ancient spirits of the desert. My presence here, my soaking in the mineral-rich waters, my contribution to the ambient steam, it was all part of the natural order. Karen's reaction was the disruption, not my presence. I decided to extend my soak, to really let the warmth and the solitude work their magic. I would stay until the stars began to pepper the darkening sky, until the desert night asserted its own unique brand of magic. Let Karen have her pristine view. I had the profound, elemental embrace of the earth. And if a little bit of steam got in her way, well, that was just nature reminding her that she wasn't in charge. As the last rays of sunlight painted the western sky in hues of fiery orange and soft lavender, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the beat-up Jeep that had navigated the treacherous tracks, for the remote location that deterred most, and for the sheer, unadulterated power of this natural hot spring. It was a place that stripped away pretenses, leaving only the raw, untamed essence of existence. And for me, it was exactly what I craved. The encounter with Karen, bizarre as it was, had only served to underscore the value of this escape. It was a reminder that while the world outside might be filled with petty complaints,